Undead and Married is a romantic vampire cozy mystery and is book one in Andy Lowe's Blood Bond Agency series. The series is published by Squabbling Sparrows Press and is also available in ebook and paperback.
Chapter 22. Despite her fatigue, Eva was still the first up that evening. She was also more alert than she'd expected to be, considering all her running around during the day. The sun hadn't even set before she was in her office, working on potential vampire matches for Angel von Koenig. The idea of setting the girl up with a human, no matter how unscrupulous his business practices, didn't sit well with her. Anything had to be better than that. She was trawling the Undead Society pages when Didi entered and put a drink down in front of her. Perhaps it was the way the receptionist placed the mug so reverently with the handle toward her that Eva knew the simple beverage was a peace offering. It was one she welcomed, hating to be at odds with Didi, especially when the woman was simply following George's orders. The deletion of the VMatch software was causing a multitude of problems, but then the two older women could never have known someone would steal the Chronicle. Eva gave a gentle smile to her friend, letting her know she'd accepted the peace offering. With this out of the way, Didi took a seat in the visitor's chair and sipped her own drink. "How did you get on today?" She then looked at the pen and blank pad in front of Eva. "I can see you didn't get hold of the Chronicle." "No, but at least I know where it is." Eva was halfway through an explanation of having sensed the Chronicle and the security up at Sebastian's place in the hills when Lilith arrived. She steered Didi's receptionist chair with one hand and held a mug in the other. Stop. Wait for me." The young IT goth spun the swivel chair around and took a seat, coming close to spilling her drink. "Okay, where were you?" She waved her hand in the air, prompting Eva to continue. Rather than starting at the beginning, Eva bullet pointed everything up to where she had been, before slowing and adding more detail. It made more sense for Didi to know what was going on than Lilith, who rarely strayed from her computers. And yet, it was a question from her that pointed out exactly what Didi and Eva had missed. Who could have guessed the Chronicle and software would disappear at the same time? Eva stared at her. "What did you say?" Rather than repeating herself, Lilith expanded on it. "You gotta admit, it's strange that the software disappeared the same night as the Chronicle." She was right. No one could have foreseen that. Or could they? "Didi, promise you won't bite my head off?" The woman took the mug away from her mouth, her eyes darker than they were a moment ago. "When exactly did Georgia tell you to delete the VMatch program?" It was something that had been bugging Eva because the software was there the evening after her grandmother left for Greece. Eva knew because she checked it at the request of a friend. And a good thing too, because the vampire Audrey was eyeing up had proven to be very married and a real slimeball. It wasn't the first time she'd set friends up using the software. Sadly, in Bella's case, the match hadn't lasted long, with the girl somehow caught out in the midday sun soon after the marriage. The authorities deemed it a tragic accident, but Eva had her doubts. The other thing she was having trouble accepting was that her grandmother knew about the software. Eva had been so careful to keep it a secret from Georgia. Next to her, the receptionist's brow wrinkled, with Eva thinking it was because the woman couldn't remember when Georgia had told her to delete the program. Then Didi spoke. "I got an email from her the day after she left." Lilith burst out in delighted laughter. "An email? From Georgia? Are you serious?" Eva was just as surprised by this. Could it be her grandmother had finally embraced technology? A quick look at the antiquated phone sitting on the large desk, and Eva shook her head. There wasn't a chance. Eva looked away from the phone and stared at Didi. It didn't take long for the receptionist to come to the same conclusion. The woman looked more distraught than Eva was feeling. Didi put her mug down carefully on the desk. "How could I have been so stupid?" She then opened her mouth, presumably to continue berating herself, but Eva stopped her by leaning across the desk and resting her hand atop the distraught woman's. "There's no point going down that path." Did the email sound like my grandmother? Were they her words? Didi stilled as she thought about her answer. Yes. Definitely. Maybe. She frowned before continuing. Maybe not. Do you still have it? This question from Lilith had both women looking at her. You didn't delete it, did you? Never in her life had Eva seen Didi so lost for words. I don't know. I'm not sure. Come on, let me have a look. Not waiting for permission, Lilith was soon sitting at Didi's desk, her fingers flying over the tablet's keyboard. It hadn't taken long for her to locate the offending email. They all crowded around the screen, with Lilith and Eva reading the email for the first time. Eva had seen why Didi was hesitant to say the words were George's own. They were, but then they weren't. While it started out quietly, soon enough, the growl emanating from their IT expert filled reception. What? Eva spun the chair around so she could see Lilith's face. What is it? Who's it from? It's from George's account, all right. But I'll bet my best Doc Martens she didn't send it. Eva glanced back to the screen, rereading the offending email. How? How can you tell that by looking at it? Lilith laughed, although there was no humor in it. Simple, because despite me setting her up with an email address 5 years ago, she's never sent one, like, ever. I doubt she even remembers her password. Then who, Eva had pointed at the screen, sent that? Yeah, well, that mightn't be as easy to work out. But I will. Anyone who hacks into my system will regret it. A moment later and she stormed off, muttering. With nothing for Eva and Didi to do but wait for Lilith's investigation, they returned to George's office. The lack of action didn't sit well with Eva, and yet she knew that at least this time the problem was out of her hands. Didi reclaimed her mug as though the interlude hadn't happened and took a sip, her grimace showing that the blood had cooled. A lot like the blood running sluggishly in Eva's veins. The receptionist put her mug back down on the desk and looked at Eva. Hang on, if you can't get in, how are you getting it back? It took Eva a second to work out that Didi was talking about the Chronicle. Eva delayed answering, instead making a production out of finishing her drink despite its subpar temperature. Didi wouldn't be happy about her attending the gathering at Sebastian's this coming Saturday. Disguise be damned, Eva could walk into who knew what danger. After draining her mug, she put it down on the pad in front of her. Yes, well, there's a cocktail party being held this Saturday, and Sebastian invited Dominik. And? Prompted Didi, skewering Eva with a gaze that made her squirm. I'm going with Dominik. As his date. She'd then rushed to add, in disguise of course. Didi was already on her feet, hands on hips, ready for a fight when Lilith swung into the office. The excitement on the young woman's face showed she'd either found out who hacked the system or overheard the tail end of what Eva said. When she gushed about potential outfits, Eva knew which one it was. The girl even offered to help Eva dye her hair black. Your hair color is too distinct. I've got plenty of dye left over from when I was human. It'll look banging. Eva wasn't exactly sure what banging meant in this context, but if it was anything like the girl's own hair color, Eva would shave her head before submitting to that. She absently stroked her hair as if to protect it from the worst dye job known to either vampire or woman. Lilith, that won't be necessary. Eva pushed on, deliberately keeping her tone airy. Magda, Dominik's cousin, is to help me prepare for the event. If Eva thought Didi's reaction to the news of the party was over the top, her response to this casual snippet was off the Richter scale. Magda, hissed the receptionist. And where exactly is this makeover going to take place? I'm not really sure. Up at the castle, I guess. At least that's where Eva imagined it would take place, simply by the process of elimination. Dominik hadn't been forthcoming with specifics. This was because he had been stopping her from going on a jealous rampage against his cousin. And she wasn't sharing that with Lilith and Didi. It was too embarrassing by far. Castle ration? Didi stared at Eva incredulously. Are you out of your mind? If Natalia finds you there, she'll kill you. And if she doesn't, Georgia will when she finds out you've been there. Kill. Eva hadn't realized the bad blood between the two families was still as strong as that. Surely 1,000 years was enough for the anger to die off. But apparently, that would be a big no. She could accept the matriarch of the Zilonka clan taking her out, But her own grandmother? That was hard to comprehend. It was also something she wasn't putting to the test. Fine, fine. I'll hire a hotel room in a nearby town. Okay. Didi's agreement was hesitant, and it wasn't until the receptionist made to leave that Eva knew the alternative venue was acceptable. On her way out of the office, the receptionist looked down at Lilith. I'm going out for a nibble. Do you want to join me? After a quick check to see if her mug had magically refilled itself, the young vampire smiled. That'd be amazing. Thank you. The receptionist looked at Eva. The only reason I'm not inviting you is because I know it's not your thing. Didi said this with a tinge of sadness, something that didn't sit well with Eva. By rights, she should go with them. But being vampire-born, Eva ran slower than her nouveau sang friends. It didn't matter that Didi was over 1,000 years old, she still required more blood than Eva did to maintain her youthful appearance. Of some comfort was the knowledge that neither woman would kill in order to eat. It was quicker and easier to infatuate their donors. Even then, they would only take a small amount from each, leaving them with happy memories of the event. With the pair off into the night, silence descended on the agency. It was time for Eva to sort out a proper match for Angel. There had to be someone she could set the young vampire up with. Someone the girl wouldn't end up killing on their wedding night, as would be the case with the human she'd set her heart on. After coming up empty on the society pages, Eva logged into Vampbook. She knew she was grasping at straws, but she needed to offer the Baroness something. Even 1 or 2 names would buy her some time. Enough time for her to get the Chronicle back and to put forward some legitimate matches? Who knew? When Lilith and Didi returned, Eva's pad was covered in names of potential partners for Angel. The women's excited chatter rang through reception before they stormed into her office. It wasn't an impressive entrance, with both of them attempting to get through the door at the same time. In the end, Lilith stepped back and let Didi enter first, as was her right, being older. Eva already knew half the story, having been able to hear everything they'd said since they came in through the back entrance. She preempted a long, drawn-out ramble, simply stating, "They followed you." And it was all the encouragement the pair needed, with both of them talking over each other to get the story out as quickly as possible. Whereabouts was it they started following you? Lilith hadn't uttered more than 2 words when Didi reached out and slapped her hand over the young vampire's mouth. On the other side of the square, not out the back if that's what you were worried about. Eva had been wondering, and she was relieved that the back way into the building was still a secret. As with the garage door itself, the smaller door was also solid stone, the keypad hidden from anyone passing by. The only unknown was whether the tracking device on Gertie the van had been strong enough for the cops to track it even when it was inside the lead-lined garage. If they hadn't caught Hugo hanging around back there, she thought this had to be a no. With the tracking device now at the bottom of the river, it was one less thing to worry about. No conclusions had been arrived at when Eva glanced at the women. "So, you haven't eaten then?" Lilith spun gleefully around in the receptionist chair before crowing, "Of course we have. I could have smelled the garlic on the officers when I was human. It didn't take long to ditch them." "Garlic? Are you serious? They still believe that hideous bulb protects them from us?" Didi sneered. "I guess so, as there's not a chance you could stink that much without having bathed in the stuff. Are you two okay to hold the fort while I go to the shop?" Didi smiled. "Sure, just know they'll follow you too." Eva would expect nothing less, although the thought of a police escort didn't sit well with her. "You'll know they're there. They stink like the worst date ever." Lilith's nose wrinkled in disgust at some such memory. Chapter 23. Rather than leave through the back entrance as the others had, Eva walked boldly out the front door. She even took time to give a cheerful wave to Captain Hugo, who was standing on the station steps before she headed away from the square. She hadn't walked even a block before getting a whiff of garlic. Sure enough, on glancing in a shop window on the other side of the street, she spotted the cop tailing her. Perhaps tailing her wasn't the right description. Even without the stench, she would have spotted him. Part of her was even put out at the lack of subterfuge. unless seeing where she went wasn't the object of the exercise, rather it was thinly veiled intimidation to get her to admit to her crimes. Ha, good luck with that. They didn't know who, or rather what, they were up against. Eva smiled before increasing her pace. From what she'd seen of the poor, unfortunate cop hot on her heels, he was as out of shape as his hapless captain. On turning the next corner, she sprinted half a block so fast she'd be invisible to the casual observer. Her pace was back to walking when her tail rounded the same corner. She repeated this maneuver until the guy stumbled to a halt. He was bent double, his bulk supported by his hands on his knees. To call him unfit would be an understatement. Only then did she make for her original destination, buying some candles at the nearest convenience store and returning to the agency. Her sneaking up on her shadow on the return journey was deliberate. Patting him on the shoulder did two things. First, it scared the hell out of him. Second, it let him know that garlic had no sway over her kind, other than ruining a date. She was still laughing about it when she swung through the front door at the agency. That was also when her phone, deep inside her purse, started ringing. It was Dominik, although how he got her mobile number was a mystery. Until now, any calls from him were to the landline at the agency and vice versa. I learned something about Saturday night, but I don't want to discuss it over the phone. Are you free to catch up? Yes. I'm in for the rest of the evening. There was a pause before he responded. Great, I'm out back. Eva stilled in response, holding the phone in her hand without ending the call. There was an unspoken rule that no one ever parked in the alley. To do so was to risk drawing attention to the area, especially so after that young girl's body had been found out there. I'm going out again. Not waiting for the other two to respond, Eva raced across reception, down the stairs and through to the back of the building. A quick glance at the monitor next to the doorway showed the alley to be strangely empty. She put the phone back to her ear. I thought you said you were out the back. I will be as soon as you are. True to his word, the minute the panel hiding the pedestrian exit closed behind her, headlights flashed further up the alley. Eva walked steadfastly in that direction, not looking until she identified the occupant of the van. She knew it was Dominik behind the wheel, able to sense his unique energy signature with her own flaring in response. The vehicle couldn't be further from Dominik's usual, high-end convertible than possible. While it was a van like Gertie rather than an eye-catching purple, it was the black of night, the windows tinted to make seeing who was inside impossible. After shutting off the phone call, Eva sprinted the rest of the way, immediately grabbing the handle to open the door. She settled in before pulling the seatbelt out and securing it. It was something that had him grinning. You are the first of our kind I've ever seen use a seatbelt. You're immortal, aren't you? Eva turned and gave him a look. Ah, yes, I am. But that doesn't mean I fancy going through the windscreen if you crash. Dominik acknowledged her argument before moving slowly off down the alley. He surprised Eva with the sedate pace he was setting. He was driving a lot slower than he had on their way to the bar the other night. It must have been something he picked up on. I don't want to draw attention to us. And where exactly are we heading? It showed how much Eva trusted him, that she'd climbed into the van and only thought to ask about their destination when on the way. I was thinking we could head back to Arabella's. Hold the truth spells. Dominik had the decency to look abashed at her snarky rejoinder, as he should have. Their journey to the discreet bar was a different affair than their previous visit, Dominik taking his time and parking well away. Nor did they enter through the front door. Rather, they made their way around the side and out to the back patio, Dominik leading the way to the same table they had sat at last time. So far as anyone inside was concerned, they'd never been there, nor were they there now. Eva was wondering how they'd order drinks when a server popped up out of nowhere. That he was holding a bottle and 2 glasses told of Dominik having some sort of standing order in place. She was sure it impressed his usual dates, but for her, it was too contrived to be romantic. As before, Dominik poured them each a glass of wine, handing her one. However, this time when he clinked his glass against hers, she waited for him to take a sip. She'd then reached out and taken his glass and replacing it with her own. I guess I can't blame you for that. No, you can't. Despite having swapped their glasses, Eva was still cautious about taking the first sip. No, sip wasn't the right term, she'd simply wet her lips. She was licking her bottom lip when she noticed Dominik staring at her. There was a glazed look in his eyes, and he was biting his bottom lip. Hard. She gulped several mouthfuls in quick succession. Anything to break the spell that had fallen over them. She then blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What did you find out that you couldn't share over the phone? Dominik shook his head before he could answer her. I got an update about Saturday night. It's not so much a cocktail party as a greet and eat. A what? Eva had a good idea what this was, but this hadn't stopped her question from popping out. Yeah, a greet and eat. It's like a meet and greet but with more blood than food on the menu, although the human guests aren't aware of this upfront. The humans? Eva took another healthy swig of wine before continuing. It'll be a blood orgy? Dominik's expression told her he was as keen on attending the event as she was. And will there be any other females of our kind in attendance, or am I to be the only one? Unable to stomach even another sip, Eva put her drink down. Dominik matched her action, their glasses sitting together next to the ice bucket. No, you won't be the only female vampire, although I doubt they'll be of the social standing you're used to mixing with. Now it was Eva's turn to grimace. Let me guess, young hot nouveau sang? Of course she knew all about Sebastian's gatherings. Did she ever expect to be taking part in one? No. At least not when she was pretending to be a willing participant. Dominik reached out and took hold of her hand where it lay limp on the white linen tablecloth. He squeezed it reassuringly before whispering, You don't need to do this. I can attend on my own and find the chronicle for you. His words cut through the clutter in her mind as if he shouted at her. No, I need to be there. It is best if I collect the chronicle myself. The devil knew what damage Sebastian had already done to the document, thanks to his manhandling of it. The fewer people that touched the historic archive, the greater the chances of its integrity being maintained. And now she knew the true extent of the enmity between the Zilonkas and De Silvas. There wasn't a chance she was letting Dominik touch it. Georgia would know on her return, and Eva would pay the ultimate price. This time, rather than leave the bar by jumping over the side of the patio, Eva followed Dominik back around the side of the building. There was no need for their subterfuge, with Eva not detecting the least hint of garlic other than that wafting out the kitchen window on their way past. Back at her desk, Eva carried on as if nothing had happened. As if she'd never been out with Dominik for that drink. Unfortunately, this wasn't true, and her stomach was already in knots at the thought of attending the greet and eat at Sebastian's. If it weren't for the chronicle being in the basement of that gaudy bachelor pad, she wouldn't go near the place. Even with Dominik at her side. She had given up on finding a vampire match for Angel von Koenig, at least for now. Instead, she was trawling the internet to find a hotel that was close, but not too close. It needed to be discreet enough that she could enter as herself before leaving as someone else entirely. The trick would be to find a safe middle ground where she could meet Magda without kicking off a family feud of epic proportions. She soon found the perfect location. It was far enough down the Google search to show it was a little off the beaten track. But not so far as to be a flea pit you wouldn't want to be seen undead in. As easy as it would have been to book online, this would mean giving out an email address and more details than Eva was comfortable with. Instead, she took her spare phone out of the bottom drawer of George's desk and punched in the number. When the call was answered promptly and professionally, it took her by surprise. Interesting. It wasn't what she was expecting. Nor was she expecting the efficiency with which she could book 2 adjoining rooms. 2 double rooms on the top floor and well away from prying eyes. Well, human eyes, that is. Eva arrived at the Red Man at 4 on the Saturday afternoon, heading straight on up to the room next to the one Magda would check into. She couldn't help but smile at the cloak and dagger aspects of their meeting that afternoon. Until she remembered why the disguise was necessary, and any humor fled, along with the bottom of her stomach. It didn't matter that she was hungry. The very idea of drinking anything had her tummy in free fall. Another aspect of her being ravenous when she arrived at Sebastian's was that it would be something that showed, something that helped reinforce her disguise. It was also something that could have her feeding directly from the source. She swallowed deeply as she pulled the drapes closed, blocking out the gorgeous view of the mountains beyond. This also had the room closing in on her, along with dark thoughts about what the night would bring. She worked herself into a right state when a light tap came from the connecting door. She needed to get her act together. So mired had she been in her forebodings, she hadn't even realized Magda had arrived. At least she hoped it was Magda. Or even Dominik. Leaning hard up against the slab door, she whispered, "Magda, is that you?" So low were her words that if it were anyone other than a vampire, they wouldn't have heard. "Yes. Dominik is with me." Eva didn't recognize the voice. What if it was someone pretending to be Dominik's cousin? She was still dithering about opening the door when he spoke. "Eva, it's okay, it's us. It's safe to open the door." He then backed this up with a blast of energy that had her close to sliding to the floor.
If you've enjoyed these chapters, we'd love it if you could give them a thumbs up. And if you'd like to continue the story, you can subscribe and tap the bell to be notified when the next chapter is released.